Okay, we are streaming live right now on YouTube. Hello, people on YouTube watching the show. We are streaming live right now. We've got with us Curtis Judd. Let me switch a shot so you can see all of us real quickly.
Hey.
So we are here. This is Curtis right there. You can see him a little bit better there. And we're going to start the show in about a second. We went through all the shots. All the audio is working. So we'll go back over here, and we will start the show recording in 3, 2, and 1. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tech Down Over. I'm joined today by our co-host, Jeff Blanchard. Hey, Jeff, how are you today?
Good, thank you, Rick. Another lovely day in the tech industry.
There's always a good day in the tech industry. Every day is a good day. I thought you were going to say a lovely day in Australia.
Well, always is that. That goes without saying.
It threw me off. Same where we are. I think we're all three of us are living in a very nice area. Well, here we go. And we're back.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Jeff, today we've got with us Curtis Judd. He's a very well-known podcaster, blogger. He does great reviews of camera, audio, video, just all sorts of different equipment, and one of our favorite people. One of the guys I've really enjoyed watching throughout the years. And since we went on our resolution beginning of the year to get good people on the show, well, he agreed to come on, so we're fortunate to have him. And hi, Curtis, how are you?
Great, Rick. Thanks for having me. Same, Jeff.
Oh,
good to meet you guys.
Appreciate it. And we found out you actually, this is a small world, folks. We're living in Camarillo, California. Curtis grew up in Thousand Oaks, California, which is just up the hill from us. And was it your grandparents lived here?
Yep.
Grandparents lived in Camarillo.
Yep.
It is a small world. What are the odds? There's only almost 350, 400 million people in the U.S., and you call somebody and they're really ex-neighbors.
And I've eaten food in Thousand Oaks.
Yeah, see?
Right.
It is, and he's from Australia. He's really 7,000 miles away. It is a small world. I've been to Park City. So.
Come on by, and we'll take you both out for food in Park City.
Oh, don't tempt us. We probably will. It's been a while since we've been there, too. But, well, Curtis, how did you wind up getting into all the audio, video? It almost sounds like you did audio first, or is that just a bad assumption?
Well, no, it's all kind of mixed up. So I actually started as a photographer. I actually shot on film back in the day, and it's funny to say that now because it seems so, I don't know. Anyway, I started on film, and I had aspirations to be a photographer professionally at one point, shortly after my wife and I got married, and then kind of reality set in and we had bills to pay, and I wasn't quite ready to make that professional jump yet. So I ended up getting into the technology industry. I ended up working, and I kind of cringe to tell you this, but I worked for AOL, America Online, back in the 1990s. And that was a lot of fun back when the company actually, I don't know, techies didn't really care too much for AOL. It was kind of like internet or training wheels for the internet, right. But that kind of took me on a path. But anyway, my younger brother is a music producer and engineer, and so I learned a lot of things about audio from him. And there came a point when he wanted to start a podcast, so I kind of dove in and started learning a little bit more about sound. And that's kind of where my interest in sound started. And then there was the DSLR revolution. Once that came around, I was able to kind of take my photography and sound skills and put them together. And that's kind of how I got started.
And, when you say you worked in film, if you think about it, it's only been about, 16, 17 years, or maybe a little bit longer, that we've gone digital. I remember our first digital camera, which was not exactly a DSLR. It was a Sony Mavica.
Yeah. Oh,
and we had for a photo shoot we did something like 300 floppy disks. Those were the good old days. But right before that, maybe this is 97, 98, and before that it was film.
Yeah.
It's absolutely not that long ago. Now you look pretty young to have actually done film, but Yeah.
It's all trickery of the camera.
And Jeff,
I did. So yeah, I started film. I was shooting film in college. My first year in college is when I bought my first SLR, and that was 1988. And so I was spending a lot of time in the library reading photography books when I should have been studying.
Yeah, I know that well. I was an IT guy for a long time, over 20 years in the computer industry, programmer, systems analyst, and then eventually got into management. And it was fun. I still love IT to this day. But we switched into the more creative arts, if you will. About 95, we got into multimedia development, e-learning, a lot of e-learning development. We've done marketing things, videos, a lot of corporate videos. And it was fun. And once you get into it, it's sort of like, programming is fun, computers are fun, but now I get to mix computers with media and it was even more fun.
Oh, yeah.
And,
absolutely.
And Jeff's the same way. He's done e-learning. He's done that. He's an avid aficionado of all things tech and video and cameras, and he spends all his weekends filming things. So,
but I've come to the conclusion, a bit probably like Curtis, is that video it's quite easy to get a real decent quality picture, but people let themselves down with doing inferior audio, and I think that's probably more important than the picture. And I tend to concentrate on that a little bit more. And even things doing like just a normal podcast, I just cringe when I just hear some of the sound qualities of people when they're trying to impress somebody. They've done an excellent video, but they've let themselves down on the audio quality.
Absolutely, and I agree. I think that it's sort of a neglected art. There are so many out on YouTube. In fact, my first video that really went kind of big on YouTube was a piece about really inexpensive video lighting, and I just went, headed down to the hardware store, bought some clamp lights, put some some CFL bulbs in there, and went to town. But what I realized pretty quickly was, man, there's a lot of space in the audio for video niche, and there's not a lot of people covering that, and so that's where I kind of decided to kind of head that direction.
And it was a good choice because they've done a lot of studies and tests, and I've taught video and audio in the past just to groups, and I always say, okay, you have your PlayStation, you have your Xbox, you have whatever you have that you're playing games with. Turn off the audio in the middle of your game, and then listen and see what kind of impact you feel from that game. It will be zero. No matter how good the video is, how good the graphics are, how good the animations are, zero emotional impact.
Yeah.
And people tried it and they go, wow, what a difference. Without audio, it's dead. Yeah, there's nothing there to guide you. The music, when it goes low, when it goes high, as it's moving you, it's triggering things in you. The audio just triggers your brain to go, oh, that's fun. It's very different.
It is, and I think you can definitely see that. What I find a lot is, so when you see these camera reviews on YouTube, and I have the utmost respect for the guys that are willing to do the camera reviews, because those are it's like a religious discussion or political discussion. It could be a nightmare in terms of the comments that come in. But a lot of times what you'll see is the ones that I found myself gravitating to were the ones where they actually had some typically it's like urban landscapes and, that kind of stuff. And the good ones seem to have some really nice music behind them.
Yeah.
And those were the ones that kind of give you this feeling like, wow, this is quality. This is what I want when I produce my pieces. And a lot of that is actually the sound and the music. It's not, the picture is important too, but the sound moves us.
But isn't that funny? Even in the reviews, people are going, yeah, that was okay, but the music made all the difference in the world. And because it's what gets your attention. The graphics can look beautiful, but by themselves, it's nice, but it doesn't carry it. Maybe in pictures it's different, because if you have a beautiful photo, you can look at it, and that's more, you're staring at it, you're looking at it. Maybe it speaks to you. But in video, things are moving or not, audio makes all the difference in the world.
Curtis, as we were just speaking before about the audio tends to get forgotten, I want your opinion. What did you find, by the sound of it, you went to NAB this year, what was your go on all the things that came out of NAB for audio? Because I haven't heard much about that.
Yeah, the world of audio is a little bit different. So you'll go to NAB and there will be this year 10 gazillion drones. You know, there'll be people excited about, you know, if there's a new camera. There weren't as many new cameras this year as last year. Last year, the Blackmagic booth was like trying to make your way through an anthill. It was crazy. But in the audio world, it doesn't move quite as quickly in big sorts of ways. Because I think what I find is that with audio, there are incremental improvements, and audio gear is, you know, actually audio gear is a better investment in a lot of ways, because you could buy a good microphone today and still be using that 10 years from now easily. So I think the things that you are seeing in the audio world were, I think one thing that was kind of interesting from Sound Devices was, in addition, so they've actually, and this is kind of, you'll see how this comes together, but at first the little 7 and the 5-inch monitor recorders that they've created, those are actually to hook up to your camera, but then they added this little 2-channel audio add-on thing that you can put on there to get 2 XLR inputs into your little recorder.
Okay.
And these are, you know, that in itself is not that big of an innovation, but what's innovative is that they've taken the incredible quality of their mixer preamps and put them in this tiny little device for $400. $400? You can hook up to that recorder.
I was gonna make a joke. What is it, 5,000? Everything they have is 3, 4, 5,000.
$400.
Wow.
I mean, that's something that, you know, even an enthusiast could potentially afford. And so that really kind of impressed me. I think another thing we're seeing on the audio space, that's, if you want to look at innovation right now, wireless is in an interesting spot right now, because wireless, so at least in the United States, and I think in other countries as well, some of the spectrum's being sold off for various other things. And so the wireless companies are kind of scrambling to find, how do they want to address that issue? How do they want to be able to make it so that their users can still record, you know, say 10, even 12 different wireless mics at the same time with the limited spectrum that we're left with. And so there's some kind of interesting things going on there. Zaxcom has a really interesting new product where the transmitter can actually transmit to a much, much narrower analog band, and at the same time, it's the transmitter is actually doing full recording as well. So if anything does go bad with the wireless, you still have a full backup recording on the transmitter itself on a tiny little micro SD card. So some pretty interesting things going on in that space as well.
Yeah, and that's interesting about Sound Device. I saw your review at NAB with Sound Devices, and I didn't notice that little one though for some odd reason. I probably gleamed over thinking 3,000. That's too much. Because every time I've looked at their products before, I go, I love audio, and I've spent money on mics and stuff, but a $3,000 preamp, do I need it? No. As it is, we've got probably $3,000 in this thing, but you know, just one Aphex is about $1,000, and they're good. But you know, we've had what is it, Mackie mixers? They're good. We have a Behringer in the other studio. It's good. But always Sound Device, I go, $3,000 for a little portable mixer. Do I really want to spend that? And I've never spent it. We've had the money to do it at times, and I said, no, I couldn't bring myself to. And I've never actually heard one. So
yes, you have heard one.
Do you have one?
Yes.
Ah, okay.
Jeff, sorry.
But as Curtis was saying, it doesn't tend to go out of fashion as much as video cameras. Like I was watching one of Curtis's old ones, and we all have this one, the Rode NT1A, and Curtis did that. And as I said, that's still on sale now.
Yeah, and it's still good.
And it's still
really
a good
mic for the price.
It's considered sort of an entry-level professional mic, but I'd say it's as good as some of the expensive mics we've gotten in the past.
I agree. How many bits of camera equipment can you say 6 years later that still is on sale and still is what people are buying? None.
Yeah.
Except the Mavica. Any floppies, anyone? I mean,
yeah, I'm dead out of floppies. I can't find any more.
Darn. You know, I found some the other day. Actually, we found an old box with like 50 floppies from a couple of photo shoots we had done 20 years ago almost. It was hilarious looking at that going, wow. And you had 1 megabyte JPEGs, which were really blurry if you look at them today. And that's as good as we got back then. digitally. Times have changed.
But Curtis, I was interested to see you also did a bit of a review on the AVX, the Sennheiser system, and versus the Rode. What did you think between the two of those?
Yeah, that's a good question. The AVX is, the trick is this. So the first thing people see on the AVX is the $1,200 price tag if you buy it with their higher end lavalier mic. And that scares a lot of people away. However, there's some really interesting things in that Sennheiser AVX system, the biggest of which is they're doing some sort of real-time compression. So it's almost impossible to clip that thing. You can scream and yell, and I didn't get any clipping at all. And so they're doing something really, really interesting with that. In terms of its connectivity, it does fine. It does just as well as the Rode does. The build quality is, I would say, half a step up, definitely, from the Rode build quality, although the Rode's decent as well. And I like that it has an XLR output, so that's kind of appealing to a different crowd. I think the Rode is probably going to appeal a little bit more to the DSLR enthusiast crowd, whereas AVX is going to be taken a little bit more seriously by someone who is like a corporate video shooter who's actually using a professional camera or has an XLR recorder of some sort. So I really like the AVX. I do see how, though, when I put that review out there, a lot of people were like, "Oh, it looks really nice, but it's really, really expensive. So for us, it's not going to work." But I would have no qualms about putting that money down.
Well, we have the Evolution. Remember the old Evolution G series Sennheisers, which we got a second one of about a year ago. It was still $1,500 for two of them, and the audio quality is incredible on those. The AVX sounds better.
Yeah.
So it's just, if you're doing professional video and audio, spend the money.
Yeah, because you're not going to have to spend it a whole lot of other times.
Yeah, and that money you're spending, how many hours of sound correction time do you really want to do when you're doing video editing?
Yeah, and there is one other thing I should mention about digital wireless, because I think it's an important point, and I did actually notice this on the AVX. There's a latency, because what's happening, of course, is you have an analog microphone that's capturing the sound. It sends it to the transmitter. The transmitter has to convert that to digital. And in the case of both the AVX, Sennheiser AVX, and the Rode Link, they're also encrypting it. Then then it's transmitted wirelessly back to the receiver, which has to decrypt it, reconvert it to analog, and so there's a latency there. And in the case of the AVX, the latency is about 19 milliseconds, and that's starting to get kind of significant when it comes to video. The Rode Link was a little better, more in the 10 millisecond range, but it wasn't, the encryption it was doing was not quite as extensive as the Sennheiser, so there is definitely a trade-off there.
Unless you're doing a Chinese movie, nobody would notice.
I suppose not.
No.
As soon as I find myself in that situation, I'm going to pull out.
You know exactly what to get. Get that AVX out.
I also noticed, Curtis, in a lot of your videos, you do like to use a boom mic, but rather than a lavalier mic.
Yes. And so that was one of the things I actually was curious about that too. So the frustration with a lavalier mic is if you have to hide the lavalier mic, if your piece requires that, if you're doing a narrative piece, you have to hide it. And as soon as you hide a lavalier microphone, either under the clothing, in somebody's hair, and typically it's going to be in clothing, just because in terms of the amount of time you have to get everyone wired up and so on and so forth, you're almost always going to get the sound, despite all the different devices and little expendable pieces that you're able to buy to kind of eliminate clothing noise. There's always that risk there. And a microphone that's sitting on someone's chest sounds very different than a microphone that's boomed above. A boomed above mic typically sounds much more natural.
Right.
And so for me, I actually did a shoot a couple weekends ago, and I ended up not using lavalier microphones at all, 100% boom. And some people might think I'm crazy because I'm holding my arms up there and I'm starting to shake at some point when they're doing long takes, and it's pretty uncomfortable. And at one point I dipped into the frame, and you never want to be the sound guy that dips your boom mic into the frame. Nobody appreciates that. So, but it was worth it. I think the quality of sound we walked away with was really, really much better than we would have gotten with the lavalier microphones, and all the challenges we would have had in terms of all the clothing noise that would have been picked up, how much of it was been usable, how much wouldn't, how much post-processing we would have to do to clean up all of that if we had to. So it's a tough thing. I know lavalier microphones are very, there's some massive advantages, obviously, with lavalier microphones. You don't have to boom up. And if you don't have that person on a crew, you don't have the option of boom operating. And so it's a real challenge. I think that a lot of people don't realize that that lavalier microphones are not the end-all be-all. And I guess I'm on a little bit of a soapbox trying to teach people there are other options out there.
Yeah, and I agree with you, because when we've done video shoots, especially corporate ones, we don't lav people up that much unless they're usually sitting in one place, not moving, and we want to get more resonance out of them. That's the one benefit of a lavalier, because when you do have it about the second rib, now you're getting the chest cavity resonance, which can give a different nice sound, but that's not the sound you want for normal speech or anything else. It's a little too boomy sometimes, or just off from what normal people would be. But the other thing we've done with those receivers, and you've probably done this, you get just a wireless transmitter by itself, and you put an XLR on top of it, you put it somewhere where you can't see it, and those Omnis catch really good sound. We were using the Rode NT3, which is an omnidirectional, kind of an interview mic, I guess. It's a condenser, and you could put that on a desk. You're shooting the person maybe over a partition. It's right under that, and it picks up everything beautifully, the person talking, and it sounds natural, or two people talking. Usually we had it with two people, and they're not laughed. And I agree, because the minute you put on a laugh, somebody goes, oh, so hold on, we got to adjust your shirt again. Okay, we got it, good. Oh, did it again.
And then halfway through that scene, they get sweaty and the tape slips, and you got to go clean that mess up.
We had one case, somebody had a little bit of, I don't know if it was an allergy or just like a bronchitis or something, and we heard this in the recording afterwards. I didn't hear that in my headsets. I didn't either. What the heck is that? It was their breathing.
Yeah.
It was picking up all the gurgling inside of their bronchial tubes. That was really freaky.
But what I must admit about using the boom mic and doing it yourself from above, I tend to find that people, if you have it below, Curtis did a comparison of being recording a sound below and above. But what I find with people is they'll tend to slump because the sound's down. But if it's up there, they tend to sit up straight because they're trying to get closer to the mic, and they'll look better. I don't know. That's just one of my observations.
And that's a good point. And also the problem with putting it below too is that some people like to talk with their hands, and as soon as they start talking with their hands, it's going to start affecting how well the audio is picked up too, because that's going to get in between the mic and their mouth.
And if they're Italian, you're going to hear this. Oops, oops. Which I do sometimes. There goes the mic. Oops.
Also, I noticed, I've been doing that when I first got, I think the same one that you have, Curtis, was the Rode NT-G2 boom. And I put that on a microphone stand, but I never even thought about your little trick about hiding it. I just saw your video. How did you come up with that idea?
Oh, the piece where you composite it out of the scene? Yeah. That's not my idea. I beg, borrow, and steal everything that I present. So that's actually a technique that has been used probably before this as well, but in the TV series House of Cards, they actually did a fair bit of that. So that was a technique that they used. I actually I've heard of it before, but I also learned a little bit more about it from my friend Scott Vanderbilt, who talked about it some as well. So that's an interesting technique. Actually, that is one thing I did see at NAB, come to think of it, is that Schoeps, which is the German manufacturer of some really, really great microphones that are used quite extensively amongst the professional field mixers, they now have one that is chroma key green. So the entire microphone, including the foam, is chroma key green, because they're actually getting a lot of demand from customers to get one that's chroma key green that they can actually very easily composite out after the shoot.
Yes, because when you're doing a video, you always remember to do 30 to 60 seconds of the background noise, the ambient noise, just in case you come back to it. But you never think about doing with 30 seconds of things with different things out of the shot. So in case you want to composite it in, you never seem to think about that. But that was a really good hint.
Yeah, and you got to have the right cameraman to make that work. Mm-hmm. They have to be convincible. Some of them are. Yes. I've worked with some really great ones, and they almost always are open to things like that. But if you've got one that it thinks a lot of themselves, it might be hard to convince them.
Well, out of curiosity, what do you like shooting with in terms of cameras? Are you shooting mainly with DSLRs? Do you still use any kind of camcorders?
No, I actually have never been in the camcorder world. I actually only picked up video once the DSLR video revolution hit. So right now I'm shooting with a Panasonic GH4, and that camera works pretty well for the kind of things I'm doing, which is mainly corporate. So when I'm on the higher end shoots, I'm just doing audio at that point. I'm not, then I'll let those guys worry about the cameras.
I was telling Jeff, we chat about this all the time. I have had a bad attack of gear acquisition syndrome over the last couple of years, gas. And
I'm familiar.
I did a little podcast about that the other day, and we didn't do it just because we needed all the gear. It was the only way we could heavily defray taxes. Because if you buy equipment, you can pretty much, it's a 2-for-1 almost. So spend 50, 60 grand on equipment and your taxes go down 120 grand. It's amazing. But you don't know until the end of the year, so you're rushing to buy things, and it's like, and when we bought all this stuff last year, we went Nikon. I've never had a Nikon camera, so what do? We buy 3 full-frame Nikons. Mm-hmm. I'm selling them now. It's like, that was really thrilling, and not because they're bad cameras. They're actually pretty awesome cameras. I think you've even done a review of the 750, if I recall correctly, the D750.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I still use that for my photography work.
It's a nice camera.
It is. It's beautiful.
But I think I like Nikon. I'm not Nikon, but Canon better. Just, it's a preference. By the way, don't send the hate mail. It's okay. We like.
So you're
Nikon.
the Canon lover. I'm more of the Nikon guy. So there's equal opportunity.
Yeah, and I like the Nikon. I was holding it the other day as I said I'm going to sell it. I'm going, I kind of like it. No, I want to sell it. No, I like it. And I found I'm just going to get rid of it. I have more Canon lenses, so I decided I'll keep the Canon and just leave it at that for now. But I've got the Panasonic GH4, which to me is one of the best cameras ever made. For video especially. It does okay photos, but wow, it's a great video camera.
It is an extraordinary camera, and the funny thing is it's in a lot of ways I think a lot of people are tired about hearing about it. It was a big splash, of course, when it first came out a couple years ago, and I got it. Gosh, I got the very first shipment they had at my local store here, and it has so many good things about it, but there are some downsides too. I mean, it's not the perfect camera, and people get all excited about low light capabilities, and that's where the GH4 just doesn't keep up.
So how many times do you really shoot in that kind of dark?
I know. Where are your lights, people? Come on, pull those lights out.
I keep hearing people saying, it didn't shoot in 1 lumens. Okay, can you come out of the cave for a couple minutes and maybe we'll shoot some? It gets extreme, and a lot of the reviewers say, this has no low light capability. Yeah, but I've taken the GH4 to city streets, to malls, at night, outside malls, and it looks great. It doesn't look badly at all. In fact, it looked better I got that D500 that everybody's raving about, and I returned it 2 days later. And people I know are going, you returned a D500? Yeah, I wasn't impressed. How can you not be impressed? Pretty simple. I thought it was blurry. It didn't take great shots. It had a lot of grain in its wonderful low light. I wasn't impressed. It was okay, but it wasn't worth the $2,000 for an APS-C sensor that I didn't think was any much better than the 7D. So, 7D Mark II. Yeah. Even though, yes, it didn't have the touch screen. Yes, you don't have the flippy, which I actually love. Jeff has heard me cursing many times about not having touch and non-completely movable LCD displays, but I thought the D500 was good. I wasn't impressed, and then I got irritated because I can't use any of my batteries. I have to use Nikon batteries. Mm-hmm. That was a ripoff. There's no excuse for that. I mean, why? Nikon batteries cost 3 batteries equal 1 Nikon battery, and they're no worse. I've had no problems with Wasabis or anybody else. So I just go, okay, now you're controlling what I'm doing. That was irritating. That was just me being irritated. I have nothing better to do sometimes. But I thought it was nice. I have good lenses. I put all my good lenses on it. It was okay. I found it in low light to be grainy. And people said, but that's artistic. No, this was grainy. um, and I wasn't getting good shots at night. I've gotten way better shots with my GH4, with the GX8. Even with my Canons, I got better low light. Even though I have an 80D too, and the 7D Mark II gave me better night shots than that D500. And I've shot with this D750 quite a bit, and I have a DA10. They shot better. So I don't know. I don't know if it's just mass psychosis. Everybody thinks it's incredible because everybody thinks it's incredible. I don't know. But I didn't have that experience. Don't send hate mail. I love the D500. It's the best camera I ever had. Just, but yeah.
I was seeing with when we was talking about low light performance. I don't know if you remember, Rick, that YouTuber Andy Ox. I think he's in Denmark.
Yes.
I'm not too sure, but as I said, with
Sweden.
very low light, he does some great things with some aperture lights, just sticking them into the a bush or a tree.
Yeah.
I think it might be a bit scary if you went down into Denmark in the late night when you're seeing him with lights in the bush and these fellas with cameras coming out. I don't know about how game I'd be to do that. But some of the things with just sticking them outside of a window, shining your light into the house, and different shots and just the styles you can get in that low light. I saw, Curtis, you do quite a few reviews on the aperture lights. What's your favorite range in the aperture line?
Ooh, wow. They just released their new Aperture Lightstorm COB 120T. This is the sort of a monoblock kind of light with a single LED hard light source, and that one is fantastic. The only problem is the first one they released is all tungsten color, which is okay for some people. Some people don't want it. I think I would prefer to have a daylight model, because if I'm going to be mixing it with daylight, it'd be a lot easier instead of trying to gel it and lose all that power. But I'm really looking forward to the daylight model of that. Right now, my main kit for lighting is the Lightstorm LS1S, which are the panels. And they're relatively small panels. They're smaller than most 1x1s, but the color that comes out of those is fantastic for the price. Just amazing for the price. I think they're priced at about $700 each. And that's the awesome thing. Color is brilliant. The amount of light they put out is brilliant. There are two things that make them not the perfect light for everybody. Number one, they are panels, and so they behave like panels. And panels are the problem with panels is that they're hard to cut. You can't really cut a panel, actually. If you have barn doors, it doesn't really. You don't get the hard line cut if you want that. So that's a little bit of a downside. There's also not a lot of softbox accessories and stuff like that. So if I want to soften it, typically what I have to do is use a scrim, and that gets a little funny. So you have to have an extra light stand and so on and so forth. The nice thing about the COB is that it has a built-in umbrella receiver, so you can actually put an umbrella in front of it. It fits into the yoke of the actual light itself. And then they also are coming out with a softbox. It actually has a Bowens S-mount, good old Bowens S-mount, which has been around for years and years and years. And any of the accessories you can buy for that mount will work on this new light. So I would say, for me, one of the lights I'm most excited about is that new Aperture. Once they get the daylight model out, that's going to be a nice one.
Now, is that the small one that you were talking? You did a review on it recently, and I couldn't find it. I go, it must not be out yet.
Yeah, that's the smaller one. The LS, I think it's the LS1. No, what is that one? The LS. I don't remember what that one's called. But no, it's not the small one.
You didn't have a name on the
bigger
review either, and I was going, what that one is?
But yeah, so that one's coming out in September, I think.
Okay, that looked really cool, actually.
Yeah, that'll be a fun one. That'll be a nice accent light, I think, a nice, very, very portable type thing. But I think it's going to be, using that as a key light's going to be a tough thing to accomplish.
Probably not strong enough.
Unless you go with one of those amazing low light cameras.
That's right.
But then you've got to get the Sony
A7S2.
Yeah, the S2. Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. So then you're still out $3,000 or whatever.
Yeah. Just for now, I was watching this
Yeah.
podcast the other day. I don't even know who the kid was. He looked like he was maybe 18. I'm probably pushing it, but he may have been younger, he may have been older, but not by much. And he goes, I'm going to show everybody what's in my bag. And he takes out this everyday messenger, and he goes, now, I'm going to be gone for 8 weeks to a place where they don't speak English, so I want to make sure that I had all the gear I need with me, just to survive. And he starts pulling out stuff. And this bag's not that big. He pulls out the first thing. He goes, "This is my Sony A7S II Mark II. I'm bringing this just in case." And then I couldn't decide which one, so I also bringing the A7R Mark II. And then two Zeiss lenses, the 14 millimeter for wide. These are like $2,500 lenses. By the time this kid was done with all the gear, Bose headsets, this headset, because he couldn't figure out which one he really wanted for comfort, I was just going, holy smoke. And he had 15 to 20,000 of gear in that little bag. Those were his essentials to survive 8 weeks in the wild.
Well, you know what they call that? They suffers from affluenza.
Affluenza, that's for sure. And I was thinking, I bet he doesn't even have a job. How does he do this? Wow.
There is something to be said too, and I've found this over time. There is something to be said too for cases when you don't have something you wish you had, because that drives creativity.
Yes.
And I found that over and over again. And I have to say, my wife is sometimes, she's like, "How many microphones do you own?" And I'm like, "I don't know, not sure."
Not enough. Not enough. Yeah.
But there is a point too where if you have all these the funny thing is even when I have all these choices, there are the basics that I go back to every single time.
I know.
Yeah, that Rode NTG2, I use it. It's a pretty good mic.
Yeah, too.
Yep. It's funny. My wife says the same thing. Don't ever get your wife and my wife together. It could be bad. My wife the other day goes, "Wouldn't your life be a lot easier with one camera and one lens?" Yeah, I guess, but it wouldn't be as complete or full or fulfilling. She's like, "Uh-huh." And then she goes, "How many mics do you have?" "I don't know, 17, 18. "And how many do you use at one time?" 16. She's like, "I never see 16 up." I go, no, they're invisible. But she's got a point. But I said, how how many times I pull out all the different mics? A lot. And I'll be playing at night with just different mics, just recording different things. I said, "No, today I want this sound. No, today I want that sound." And she goes, "Just really?" I go, "Really? It's important." "How many cameras do you have?" I go, "I had about 8, but I think we're going to sell 4 of them." She goes, "And do you need the other 4 that you're leaving?" "Uh-huh, absolutely." You always have to have duplicates and triplicates, and we're not even counting the camcorders. So it's like, she's like, oh, God.
So, Curtis, Rick and I got recently one of the Studio Projects, one of their microphones. Have you had much to do with them?
I haven't. Tell me about that.
The C1 is an incredible. I got it from a voiceover talent. I know Colin Quinn. He's a very good voiceover talent. And he said, "Hey, have you ever tried the Studio Project C1?" I go, "No, I haven't." He goes, "It sounds just like a U87 from Neumann, a $2 to $3 grand microphone." I go, "Really?" "It's $250. I got one.
Oh.
It sounds awesome for $250. It really does. It's a good sounding condenser microphone. It's pretty. It looks very kind of high-techy. The sound is great. You could sing into it, talk into it. It is very clear articulation and actually does sound like a U87 for $250.
And it comes with its own coffin.
It does. It comes in a coffin.
If I've got it on my shot now if you want to see. So.
Very nice.
So
bring that over a little bit. There we go.
Is.
There we go.
Okay.
There it is.
So this is a large diaphragm condenser microphone?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
See if I put that in my...
It's when I heard about it, I had to have it. And I told Jeff, and he got it.
That's it there, yes.
It's a beautiful mic. It comes with its own shock mount, and it's just nice.
Sounds good. What I'm hearing sounds good. You're using that right now, Jeff?
Yeah, I've just found it's such a nice, smooth sound. I'll use the NT1A a lot, but what I found with the NT1A, it's great, but it picks up everything.
Are you on the AFX?
It's really good. So I'm on the AFX now, but even then, with every condenser, it picks up a lot, and I don't know. I've got in here, I have to have the dog in the room because he won't accept being out, and sometimes he snores, which he's doing now, so you just can't pick up his snoring. But that's usually the only problem, is picking up too much. But I really love this. I went and did what Rick was saying the other day. I got all my mics out and changed over, did different mics. But since I've had this one, I went back to this one because I like this one the best for sort of everyday use. But it is a really good quality mic.
Mine hasn't come off the boom in about 2 months already. It's been pretty much on. I go, why do I like this so much? It's a nice mic. Now here I'm using, it's kind of a dark, so you can't see it too well, but you can see it a bit.
It's the
Sennheiser 416. It's a great mic. I should probably keep it up here. But now I don't know how I'm going to sound, if I'm going to be louder or quieter. Can you still hear me?
It's it's thinner, definitely thinner, so you're not getting as much of the resonance.
Yep, so I use it more like a voiceover mic, so I tend to keep it closer. And I never thought a shotgun would be a good voiceover mic. One of my friends, Jason Bishop, is a VO guy, and he said he uses his Sennheiser almost all the time. Linda Joy, another voiceover person I know, she uses her 416 as her main mic, and I started using it about 2 years ago, and I'm just impressed with how good a sound it is for a really thin shotgun.
Yeah,
Sennheiser
that's a classic.
makes good mics.
It's an absolute classic, and there's a good reason for it, for sure.
And I've never used it in a video shoot yet, so one of these days I want to use it in a video shoot. We've been using the other Sennheisers, 266 or something. I can't remember the number. 360, I don't remember the number, but they're good. We've had them for like 15 years. They still work well.
Yeah. And now, one mic I have been trying to use, and everybody seems to think it's really good, was the Rode Smart Lav with the phone. I just want to get both of your opinions on that, because I don't seem to get a very good sound out of the recording. Am I doing something wrong?
Rick, do you want to go first? You want me to go first?
All I could say is, in your audio recorder, if you use the Rode one or a different one, you can set compression and other settings which make the mic sound a lot better. But I don't have one anymore, so I had the older version, which I didn't think sounded that good. The newer version sounds better. The Smart Lav 2?
The Smart Lav Plus, yeah.
Plus, that's it.
Yeah, I think the original Smart Lav was extraordinarily noisy. I think it was an interesting first attempt, and I think my impression is that Rode typically does very good quality stuff. The Rode Smart Lav felt a little rushed to market to me because it was extraordinarily noisy. And then the Smart Lav 2 came out. It was actually much better. It does have a distinct what's the best way to put it? It almost has, in the mid frequencies, it has this sort of harshness. It almost borders on distortion right in the mid range. And I hear the same thing actually. It's very interesting. The Rode lavalier, not the Smart Lav, but the Rode lavalier, the $250 lavalier mic that they do, actually has a similar sound to it too. So I'm just personally not entirely in love with the sound of Rode lavalier microphones, but I think they are. The nice thing about the Rode Smart Lav Plus is that the build quality is very good, so it'll stand up for a while. But yeah, I think there are better sounding lavalier mics, even that run less. And
I have the Rode HS1, with the Headset 1, which I think uses the same capsule as the Smart Lav, and I find the same issue. It's a little. Sometimes it sounds really nice, and other times it just sounds kind of harsh.
Yeah.
And so I don't use it anymore. I've got two of them, and I barely use them. And I don't know, and I thought it was maybe my preamp, but I've tried 3 different preamps, and I get, it goes from smooth to, that didn't sound that good.
Yeah, and I think it's that same thing. It seems very sensitive to how it's placed, and if you have it placed just wrong, it's just
not quite
becomes
right.
kind of harsh.
And I think you're right, it is in the mids. It doesn't have that much high. Rodes aren't really good at the highs. They tend to be mid to low. And I find it just seems, it's articulate, but it's harsh.
Yeah. So, Jeff, you're not alone, my friend.
Yeah.
Oh, well, it must have been because I must have had the early one. And when I first did a test on it, I was quite impressed because I took my video camera out, took it out in a windy situation, used the Smart Lav, and it came out really good. But the only reason why it came out really good because the quality of the sound on the camera was that bad, it made the lav mic sound really good. But when I got it into a quiet room, I was still getting all the noise in the background. So maybe give the Smart Lav 2 a go. But what I did like with that was the fact that I could have a small recorder as the iPhone, connected to that, but I've gone away with my Tascam and just stick it in my back pocket and use something like that.
Now, you know,
that seems to
there's
go
a wired lavalier, which is pretty darn good for $28. It's the AKG something or other, 9750 or I forgot the number, but it's 28 lousy bucks.
I have picked up one of those ones that's got a huge cable
with it. Is that 20-foot cable?
One of the cheap ones, because I figure, well, if I've got an external recording device and I'm hiding it in there, that's gets away from the wirelessing. But I still want to get either an AVX or the Rode Link, because I think that's going to be the best. But
and you know, I found that the Shure
purpose for it,
and the Shure wireless, I find also have that kind of harshness. They don't sound as good as the Sennheisers. They don't sound as full or as just warm. They're a little harsh again, which is sort of interesting because they're used a lot for singing supposedly, which means how do you would sound awful with those singing because you're going to get even harsher.
Yeah, I would say if you're looking at Rode Link versus Sennheiser, one thing I've kind of landed on is I'm invested in the Rode Link, so that's where I put my money initially, and that was before AVX hit. And I'm not thrilled with the Rode lavalier that comes with it, but what I've done is swap those out for some Sanken COS 11D lavaliers, and that is a great combination. That's been working really well for me.
So you don't have to use the Rode lavalier on it?
No, in fact, it's this exact same, it's a 3.5 millimeter TRS connector that you would use with the Sennheiser G3s.
Okay,
it's the locking plug. So those are really ubiquitous. I mean, you can find any lavalier you can get with that termination. So.
Yeah, and the G3s were great. Very, very good mics.
And the Rode's very good mic. It's just like everybody says, the main big difference. It's just a big clunky box on it rather than the AVX. But hey, it's a third of the price.
Exactly. And in terms of the sound quality, I didn't notice a huge sound quality difference, with the only exception of being the clipping suppression, that, or whatever you want to call it. I think they had a special trade name for it on the Sennheiser side. I don't remember what it's called, but that is nice. The Rode Link doesn't have that, but I haven't, if you're monitoring your gain levels, that's not generally a big issue. So.
It's not very many people come out with a foghorn in the middle of an interview.
Generally not.
Not usually. Usually. I've actually recorded, when you said that, I started laughing because I actually did a recording for Southern California Edison, and we were in Long Beach, and in the middle of it, you hear boom. It's like, we're close to the harbor. We got a foghorn. So I've been there, done that one, Jeff. It was actually funny. It's like, let's take that scene over because couldn't hear a thing.
Curtis, before we go, I want to ask you, you did some tips on monitoring your sound quality, and I struggle with that a bit because I use headphones or speakers, but sometimes if I use headphones, I'm listening to too much quality. So what do you recommend?
Are you talking during production while you're recording or after in post?
After it, well, in a bit both, but mostly after to monitor your quality of your sound.
Okay. Yeah, I think you can do well with headphones, but I think you really need to look at reference headphones with an open back design typically. The trick is that with a closed back design, which of course these are some just kind of consumery Sennheiser headphones here. The closed back design it's really, really tough to be able to reproduce all the frequencies in a closed back design. They're convenient when you're recording or when you're trying to kind of isolate yourself from your environment and you just want to hear what you're listening to. But when you're actually monitoring and you need to do critical listening, that's where I think an open back design is a much better choice. And there are some great options out there. I personally use Bayer Dynamic DT880s, which are kind of a semi-open back design. Those are about $200 US, and then Sennheiser makes some that I would love to have. I haven't been able to justify buying them yet, but I believe it's their HD 650s, I think it is, or 450s. I don't remember the number. It's about I think it's a $500 set of headphones. So, but it's a beautiful open back design. Everyone that has used them, audiophiles and people that are using it for reference, to make mixing decisions and be able to do critical listening, just absolutely love those.
And you actually, Jeff, you have those AKGs, which are pretty good too. They're the open back.
Yeah.
Those 702s?
I've got the 702,
No.
I think, or
These are the
750.
cheaper
Those
ones,
are nice.
just the 240s.
Oh, okay.
Just a
Okay.
cheaper one.
I think I have the AKG. I think it's a 702. It's 7 something. Oh,
Here-
they're incredible.
Yeah, but one thing to keep in mind too, I think once you get to a certain point, so once you've invested, $200-300, from there, I think it's really just a matter of acclimating your ears to those particular monitors and coming to know what they're good and not good at, and so do your mixing, take it and play it back on your hi-fi, take it and play it back in your car, take it and play it back wherever you can get it to play back, and you'll start to kind of. It'll kind of sink in. Okay, this is where my headphones are kind of leading me astray a little bit, and I can compensate for that. Because you could drop $40,000 on the perfect set of headphones, and
that's true.
Your life won't be any better. Your product won't necessarily be any better.
I know I always suffer from hearing or seeing somebody having a great quality. You may mention the Bayer Dynamics. There was somebody used a set of them with a built-in microphone. And the quality was so excellent enough. I think the set that they used is still about $400 or $500, but it cut out everything. But you can just go crazy.
Now I had a Bayer Dynamics that was about $240, but it was closed back, and I hated it because if I tried to do voiceover, it sounded like it sounded like you're in a bathysphere. It was so nothing got in, nothing got out. It was not pleasant.
Which is actually, if you during production, that's helpful because you want to hear exactly what's coming through the preamplifier. But during post, you definitely want that more open sound for sure.
It was interesting. I tried using it for a show. I couldn't hear anything. Every time I talked, it just overwhelmed the ears. I was going, "Ooh, this is not good." But there was a guy working with us. He was a musician. He goes, and I said, "Do you like those?" He goes, "I love these," and he would use them every chance. So they're yours. He's like, wow. So he was all happy, and I just got rid of something I hated. It's just weird. So actually, he left them, didn't he? I think he actually left them behind, too. So it's just...
Kind of being that good, then.
Yeah, it's just, he was a little ditzy. But some people love that kind of sound. To me, it just drove me crazy, especially if I was trying to record at the same time I'm listening. I couldn't. I tend to record VO without headphones on at all because I know how I sound, and with the headphones, I can't tell how I sound. That's just weird. Well, Curtis, this has been fun. It's been a pleasure having you on. We only went 35 minutes past our normal time, so we did pretty well. And we could have kept going.
It's been an absolute pleasure. I love to geek out, and you guys are great guys to geek out with.
Oh, thanks. We had a good time. And like I said, we always could kind of feel like you know the person from watching many podcasts, and you do a good job. Keep them up because you really do a great job on them.
Thank you so much, and likewise, keep it up.
We will. And hey, next time we're in Park City, if you're down in this way again, let's get together for lunch or something.
Come on over.
Never threaten that because we probably will take you up on it.
Yeah, you may one day we just show up. And Jeff brings a kangaroo with him sometimes. He's just a pet mascot, but I kid you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you much.
Okay.
Oh, and by the way, if anybody's watching, how can they get a hold of you for anything, whether they want to do video recording or anything else? What's the best way to get a hold of you? And are you doing any more shows, podcasts, or webinars soon that people can attend?
Yeah, so I learnlightandsound.com is my blog, and that's probably the best place to get in touch with me. You can reach me there. I'm at curtis@learnlightandsound.com. I do have a new course that'll be coming up in probably at the end of July, and it'll be about the kind of fundamentals of post-processing dialogue sound for film and video.
Oh, good.
So, looking forward to that. It's going to be a lot of fun.
That'll be very good. Something that's also needed.
Yeah, for sure.
That's good. Yes, audio is sort of a dying art, and that's a shame because there's so much good you can get out of audio, and it's fun.
It's fun. You move people with it.
I may give you a call on the. I think was it the G8. I got one of those. I watched your review and I got it, and then we went live recently, and I was going to take it, and then I go, I don't know how to use this thing. I don't think I'm going to take it yet.
Good call.
Yeah, I go, no, this is going to be tricky, and I didn't think I could use it to record live at the same. It didn't look like I could do it the way I wanted, so I held off. I stuck with my Beach Tech for what I needed. I knew how to do that one, but it does look good. One day I'll use it. Anyway, well, if you're watching the show, please subscribe, give us your feedback, and we look forward to seeing you next week on Tech Down Over. Have a good one, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye for now.
Thanks a lot.